Good morning everyone, welcome back to another episode of Barham Engines. So guys, things have changed a little bit here on the Monday morning. First of all, we've got the Subaru in the box. So that is all done, and a big congratulations to Isaac. And I'm sure it's going to be absolutely fine. Now, the thing that I think the thing that put the willies up Isaac as they say, for a minute was the fact that this thing is supposedly about 650 horsepower or something ridiculous like that, and that is why it's got all the trick bits on it. So yeah, it was just to freshen up. As I say, a lot of you have commented, apparently Isaac said about the cam belt, but that cam belt, believe it or not, was pretty new, and the customer wants that on because it's a fairly expensive belt. So that is how we've done it, guys. We haven't done our usual blast everything, but it is all now, hopefully, as good as it can be. So that one there is off the engine stand. You can see we've got a free stand. So what we're going to do in a minute is get the K-Series Rover onto that stand, and Isaac's going to crack on with stripping that and see what we can find there. So the Cosworth, guys, now this is the one that come in the other week that we have just stripped. You can see now I've got this apart, and what have I found so far? So first of all the mains look okay. The crank turned absolutely lovely, actually. The main housings look good anyway, but also, although I'll measure them, make sure they're all good, I'm going to have to measure the bores to see whether we have got enough material to take out of there just to stick another set of rings in, because it's very, very glazed. Now this thing, apparently, although it was built years ago, it has only run for an hour, and I've noticed that the oil, now this was some of the oil that we drained out, obviously the customer drained out most of it, but that is just like tar, and it stinks of fuel, guys, and it's black as charcoal. So I suspect that this thing has been over fueling like hell, and the hour that it has run, it's glazed the bores up. So I'm hoping that we can take a little bit of material out there just to deglaze it. Now the bearings, what we found on the bearings. Now first of all, the oil pump was fairly loose. I would say a little bit more than hand tight. So we all know, or you should know if you've watched plenty of my videos about the Cosworths, the design on these pumps where you've got the two bolts at the back. Really, you could do with another one here to bolt the thing fully, but you need to tighten these up quite a lot to get the thing to sit flat. So I suspect that this thing has probably been, if not now, it may not have done because the oil's like glue, but it probably would have been sucking in air over time. So that pump would probably be kinked over like that eventually. So yeah, although it's a new pump, I've got to strip it and have a look at it. Bearings don't look too great. Whether that is anything to do with probably a little bit of debris in the oil somewhere, but whether that is anything to do with the fact that it's got a lot of fuel in, don't know. So the main bearings, guys, you can see there's some very odd wear marks on the bearings, especially over here. I don't quite know what's happened there. On this one, it looks like someone's sort of rubbed a bit of wet and dry over there at some point. Whether it was to remove a couple of those little spots, I don't know, but not great practice, I would say. But the very odd thing is, these bearings do look distinctly different, apart from the oil groove and the oil hole. Notice on the back, we've got original Van der Velde Ford bearings there, but in 2.5. But this half is an ACL 0.25, so it looks like they've used one half of the Van der Velde and one half of the ACL for whatever reason. Not what I do. Bit odd. Don't know what happened there. Let's have a little look at the stuff in the wash. So there's some, yeah, you can see down the bottom how gloopy that is. Look, guys, that's horrible. So whether this thing's had a leaky injector or leaky set of injectors, although he did say that the injectors were serviced and they were greens, which are usually pretty good. I can understand if they're greys, but that is just like glue in the bottom of there. It looks awful. The crank is ground 0.25 on all of them. Does look pretty good, actually, the crank, so we're going to measure that, and I'm hoping that's within spec. Pistons, we've got the Wasner pistons, standard rods. Not sure whether they've been sized. They look like they've got sort of grinding marks on the top, so whether they've been balanced, shouldn't think they've been balanced from end to end, because there didn't look like there's any material off the small ends, and they're never usually dead right on the small ends. Pistons all look pretty good, to be fair. Just going to need a set of rings on them, and as I say, see what the oil pump's like. So yeah, that's that Cosworth, guys. We'll get measuring and we'll report back in the next video, I would have thought, see what we got there, but it's a little bit odd. So this Cosworth here with the liners, guys, we took this out to 0.25. I've got the pistons now, which I've got to put pockets in, and I've just honed the bores out to give the correct clearance. So letting it cool, just going to check them, and then this thing I can clean thoroughly and get on the engine stand. And as I say, I think John has just finished the crankshaft. Oh no, I think he's had to remove it. He's done the big ends. He's done the mains. He's just got to do the big ends once he's changed the stone, I think. But that's it with the Cosworths at the minute. As I say, Isaac has done the Subaru, so that's really good news. Probably after the Rover's stripped, so we know where we are there, we'll probably crack on with this Mercedes. Let's get this one done and out the door. I think we're not really waiting for anything on that now. The head is just placed on the top, so we don't get anything in the block. But yeah, everything's pretty much cleaned up and ready to go on that one, guys. For the first time since we've had it, we've managed to clean out the washing machine today, and you would not believe what was inside, as they say in the thumbnails. So there was probably a good 3 inches of sludge at the bottom of this, which we had to scoop out. Quite a good design on the sump though. It's, as I say, there's about 4 or 5 inches before the housing that goes through to the motor or the filter. So the sludge tends to sit in the bottom. So we scooped all that, put it in a bucket, big bucket, probably about 6 inches of sludge in this big bucket. So we've managed to get all that out, wash it all through. And to be honest, the skimmer seems to do the job, because all that came out was horrible, dirty water, to be honest. So that was fine. So yeah, the washing machine does the job, guys. We are no longer washing oily engines that goes down the drains. Not that we did before anyway, but we're certainly not doing that now. So that's the washing machine washed. So hopefully tomorrow we can see how that performs, because we were pretending to have bits coming out dirtier than they went in. So yeah, that's all good. Secondly, guys, we have had a bit of a warranty issue on a vehicle that we built an engine for last year. Now, the reason I'm telling you about this is because if there is people out there with this specific vehicle, you might want to bear this in mind if you do any work on it yourself. And it's a bit of an odd one. So it was a Mark III Focus RS engine, although the engine that we were doing was all a bit fancy. It had some trick bits in it. We built the motor, but it wasn't the 2.3 EcoBoost bottom end. It was the 2 litre bottom end, because that is a closed deck. Apparently it's a thing they do because it's a stronger block. So you use a 2 litre head gasket, which is pretty similar to the 2.3, and then 2.3 everything else. So yeah, we built this motor, all the trick bits, put a competition head gasket on it, and out the door it goes. Then I think that was the sort of middle of the summer last year. In the meantime, I've actually found out through a contact that worked for Ford, Tor Ford, here in Barnstaple, and he said that when they were doing the recalls for the head gaskets on the Focus RS Mark IIIs, they had it on 2 or 3 occasions where they were leaking oil. Now, they were leaking out between the cylinder block and the cylinder head, where the oil feed goes to the cylinder head. And apparently they got, I think they got in touch with Mountune or something. Their Mountune had the same issue a couple of times, and they said what they do is put a sealant around the head gasket where the oil feeds to the cylinder head, and that cures it. So Ford actually changed their paperwork to say about putting this in. It was one of the procedures of doing a head gasket. So obviously we found this out after we did this engine. We've actually done 2 engines last year of these. I've informed the other customer, and we've got the other one back now because it is actually weeping a bit of oil. We weren't sure whether it was coming from that area. It could have been the front cover, so we got it back anyway. A friend of mine, Dan, is doing the work. He's ex-Audi, brilliant mechanic, and he's investigating now, and he's cleaned it all up, and he said it does appear that it is leaking between the cylinder head and the block. Now the block was faced, the head was faced, it was a good gasket, so it can't be anything to do with that. So yeah, we're sort of doing a head gasket issue. We're doing the head gasket issue under warranty, guys. So we're going to put a new head gasket on it, get another headset. It's a stud and nut kit, so we should be all right there. But yeah, we've had the car back and doing it. So if any of you guys have got a Mark III Focus RS, or even I've spoke to 2 or 3 garages and they weren't aware of this. So even if you're a mechanic, guys, and you do one of these, just bear that in mind. Worth getting the paperwork off Ford. So yeah, it's a warranty job, guys, but it's the way you deal with it, isn't it? We're having it back and we're sorting it for the customer. Right then, just very briefly, guys, on this Cosworth I've just stripped. I spoke to the customer earlier, Eddie, and it seems that I got my wires crossed on this. Now, the engine was built, we thought, about 10 years ago, but it's actually been built 12 years ago. Now, Eddie informs me that the company that had a lot on at the time we thought didn't really do it properly. It turns out that Eddie actually built this motor himself, and the company did all the machining, etc., and supplied the bits. So I've spoke to him, I've given him 2 options on the prices, and he's gone for option 1. Now option 1 is me supply all the parts, rectify any issues we got here, size everything, balance everything, do the machining, so sort the block out, go through the cylinder head. I'm probably going to stick the crank rods and pistons in for him. Obviously I've got to do that anyway for a dummy, but Eddie's going to go away and he's going to build it himself, as in put the head on, etc., time it up. Slightly cheaper. I won't tell you why, but I'm sure he's giggling when he's watching this, although his wife probably isn't if she's watching it. Sorry. But anyway, Eddie said that the company that did it supplied all these bits. When I said to him about the main bearings being 2 different manufacturers, he was a bit surprised by that, so I'm not 100% sure on why. I could understand if we're using the Van der Velde ones and they were standard, I could say, well, it looks like he's put the original bearings back in 1/2, but they're 0.25 and the crank's been freshly ground, so I'm not sure about that combination. But I did say to him, look, when you do put it together, Eddie, be very, very careful and make sure everything's thoroughly clean, because there are witness marks on these bearings of it looking like it's got some debris in there. So obviously I'm just going to be checking everything, make sure everything's hunky-dory for him to just put back together. But I did say that I would like to spend a little bit more time, and let's just get the crank rods and pistons in, make sure everything's good there and gauged up. So obviously the only trouble is with that is the warranty side of it. You're not going to have the warranty that you would if we were doing it, but that's where the money goes in it at the end of the day, making sure that we do it properly and we spend the time on it. But yeah, we completely understand. So let's get this thing all machined up, checked up, and let's try again. But as I say, it was 12 years ago, and who knows what's happened over the 12 years. But yeah, could have been worse. I did say to him, because of the oil pump was loose, he had to hold his hands up with that. But I suppose the only plus thing about this is it did need to come to bits, because if that pump would have loosened itself, you're going to lose oil pressure and trash the engine. And I said to him, at the end of the day, these things now, it's not like the old days where you can sort of lash them up and get away with it. If you do a crank, you get another crank. These things now are getting so hard to get bits for. You know, a crank could be a couple of grand, so it's no joke anymore. So yeah, we'll make sure everything's good for him, and let him do what he wants to do with it. But yeah, that's it for another video, guys. Thanks ever so much for watching and being patient with these Cosworths. We'll be back Wednesday. Have a great evening. Cheers, guys.